Marcus Hale returned home late on a cool autumn evening, exhausted from a long shift at his office in Seattle. The sky was fading into a deep shade of orange and purple, and the street remained quiet with only the rustling leaves moving across driveways. He rubbed his eyes, reached for his keys, and almost missed the small box sitting neatly on his front porch. The box was wrapped in matte brown paper with a soft, navy blue ribbon tied carefully around it. His name, Marcus, was written in curved handwriting on a tiny white tag. He straightened up and looked around, confused. No delivery truck had passed, and there were no footsteps or voices nearby. His neighborhood was peaceful, mostly families and professionals who stayed indoors after sunset. He leaned down, picked up the gift, and felt the weight of curiosity settle in his chest. Marcus wasn't used to surprises. He lived alone, kept to himself, and spent most nights writing short stories that never saw daylight. His life was steady, controlled, and quiet. Just as he turned the gift over in his hands, he heard someone step onto the sidewalk. "Good you, found it." A soft voice called. Marcus looked up and saw Ella Thompson, his next-door neighbor, standing near her picket fence with a steaming cup of tea. She wore a cream sweater and loose hair tied behind her ear. Her expression was calm, gentle, and a little nervous, as if she wasn't sure how he would react. "You left this?" Marcus asked, adjusting his glasses slightly. Ella nodded, offering a shy smile. "You've helped me carry groceries so many times. I thought I should say thank you properly." Marcus blinked, genuinely surprised. He hadn't realized she noticed those small moments, him grabbing milk cartons from her car, holding her door open, or helping her when her porch light flickered out. He did those things without expecting anything in return. "You didn't have to do this," he said, though a faint warmth stirred in his chest. "I know," she replied softly, "but I wanted to." Marcus held the box a little tighter. He wasn't used to receiving thoughtful things. He moved to Seattle after leaving New York and a life that fell apart-tended relationships. A career that drained him. Dreams he stopped pursuing. Everything felt distant back there, yet close enough to haunt him when nights got too quiet. He loosened the ribbon, slowly unwrapped the paper, and carefully lifted the lid. Inside lay a leather-bound notebook, smooth and dark brown, with gold-pressed letters on the cover. "Write something worth remembering." For a moment, he didn't speak. He just stared, speechless, because the gift felt too personal, too aware of a part of him he no longer shared. He finally looked up at Ella. "How did you know I write?" Ella shifted her teacup between her hands. "Sometimes I hear your keyboard late at night from my window. The rhythm doesn't sound like office work. It sounds like someone trying to create something." Marcus let out a quiet laugh, not mocking, but surprised. He couldn't remember the last time someone noticed something about him that wasn't surface level. "I used to write a lot," he admitted. "Stories, essays, dreams that never became anything." Ella stepped a little closer, her eyes kind but not intrusive. "Maybe they still can." Her voice wasn't pushy. She wasn't trying to fix him or give advice. It felt more like a gentle reminder, one he didn't know he needed. Marcus traced the notebook's edges with his thumb. It felt like the start of something small, yet meaningful. He hadn't written properly in months, maybe years, but suddenly, holding that gift, he felt a spark he thought he lost. "You notice things?" he said softly. Ella smiled, though her gaze dropped slightly, showing a hint of vulnerability. "Only when they matter." For a moment, neither spoke. The cool air wrapped around them, carrying the scent of pine trees and distant rain. Streetlights flickered on one by one, adding a faint glow to the quiet evening. Marcus wanted to say something that matched the sincerity of the moment, but instead he settled on a simple truth. "Thank you. Really. You're welcome," she whispered. "And if you start writing again, I'd love to read something someday. Only if you want." He nodded, more serious now. "Well, maybe sooner than I thought." Ella took a step backward toward her yard, smiling lightly before walking away. She didn't turn back, but Marcus watched her silhouette disappear into her doorway. The simple gesture, the thoughtfulness. The way she understood something unspoken knit lingered with him long after she left. He walked inside, placed the notebook on his desk, and sat quietly in front of his computer. For a long moment, he simply stared at the blank screen. Then, slowly, almost without thinking, he opened a new document and began typing. Words flowed like they'd been waiting for permission. A small gift from a neighbor shouldn't have meant much. But to Marcus, it felt like someone had opened a window in a room he forgot he was living in. He paused, fingers hovering above the keyboard, smiling to himself. Maybe this wasn't just a gift. Maybe it was a beginning he didn't know he needed. And though Marcus didn't realize it yet, Ella hadn't given the gift just to thank him. She had her own reasons. Reasons she wasn't ready to share. This was only the first step in something neither of them fully understood. The days after receiving the notebook felt different for Marcus. He found himself stepping outside more often, sometimes just standing on his porch with a cup of coffee, hoping to see Ella walking home from her afternoon shift at the local bookstore. Their conversation started casually short greetings, small smiles, simple questions like, "How was your day?" Or, "Are you writing anything new?" But each exchange grew longer, deeper, and more personal, as if they were slowly learning to trust each other with pieces of their inner worlds. One evening, a light breeze moved through the neighborhood, carrying the scent of wet grass after a brief drizzle. Marcus was sitting on his porch steps, notebook open beside him, writing a story about second chances. He heard footsteps from next door and looked up to see Ella walking out with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She paused when she noticed him, then approached with a soft, thoughtful smile. "Writing again?" she asked. He nodded. "Trying." Still shaking the rust off, she sat down beside him, not too close, but near enough that he could feel her presence. "It suits you, Scoosh," she said simply. There was something comforting in the way she spoke, not dramatic or exaggerated, just honest. Marcus found himself telling her things he didn't plan to share. He told her how writing helped him cope with stressful years in New York, how he once dreamed of publishing a book, and how he almost signed with a small publisher before life derailed everything. Ella listened carefully, her eyes soft with empathy. When he finished, she looked at him thoughtfully. "Maybe your dream didn't disappear," she said. "Maybe it just waited for you to be ready again." Marcus wasn't sure if it was her voice, her kindness, or just the timing. But her words felt like a gentle push he needed. Their routine continued. Some nights they talked from their porches across the short fence. Other nights they met while taking out trash or picking up mail. What began as coincidence slowly became something they both expected, almost like unspoken appointments. But the night that changed everything came with heavy clouds and a slow, steady rain. Marcus was at home editing a chapter when he heard a knock. He opened the door to see Ella standing there with 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate, her hair slightly damp from the rain. "I made too much," she said, cheeks warm with a shy expression. "Thought you might want some?" Stepped aside. "Come in." She hesitated for half a second, not out of fear, but respect, then stepped inside with soft footsteps. His living room was warm, lit only by a small desk lamp and the glow from his laptop. She handed him a mug and sat near the window, watching droplets slide down the glass like tiny silver lines. For a while, they sat quietly. The room filled only by rain tapping softly on the roof. Datla broke the silence first. "You know, I came here to start over. I wanted somewhere quiet, somewhere I could breathe again." Marcus took a sip, waiting without pressing her. Ella continued, her voice steady but fragile beneath the calm. "My last relationship wasn't bad, just draining. We wanted different things. I felt like I was becoming someone else just to keep the peace." Marcus nodded slowly. Sometimes staying too long can hurt more than leaving. Her eyes met his, surprised by how deeply he understood. "Exactly." Then she asked him a question he didn't expect. "What about you? Why Seattle?" He stared at the rain, fingers tightening around the mug. "I left New York after things fell apart. Job stress. A relationship that ended quietly. We were together, but not really. I stayed because I was afraid to start over." He exhaled. Eventually, I packed my life into a car and drove until the city felt far enough. Ella watched him with a look that felt sincere, not pitying. Starting over takes courage, she said. Most people only talk about doing it. Sometimes I still feel stuck, he admitted. Maybe you're still healing, she replied softly. Healing doesn't always look like moving fast. The room felt warmer emotionally, not just physically. Their words settled gently, like truths neither had said out loud before. It wasn't romantic in a dramatic way. It was deeper, like two people finally feeling seen. They talked for almost 3 hours. About childhood memories, her summers in Vermont, his teenage years spent reading in crowded cafes. About fears hers of ending up alone, his of never becoming anything meaningful. About dreams hers of starting her own art studio, his of finally finishing his book. Time blurred. The rain slowed. The world outside felt distant. As midnight approached, Ella stood pulling her sweater sleeves down. I should go, she said softly. Marcus walked her to the door, not wanting the moment to end. When she reached the porch, she paused and looked back at him with an expression that held gratitude, curiosity, and something unspoken. I'm glad we talked, she said. Me too, he answered. She took a few steps toward her house, then turned one last time. And Marcus, she added gently, don't stop writing again, even if no one else reads it. I will. He felt her words linger long after she left when the door closed behind him. Marcus returned to his desk and stared at the notebook Ella gave him. The blank pages no longer felt intimidating. They looked like a promise. He opened it and wrote until dawn. He didn't realize it yet. But those late-night conversations were slowly pulling him out of the quiet life he built to protect himself. And somewhere between shared laughter and late-night honesty, Marcus began to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. What he didn't know was that Ella felt it too, and soon. Something would push their connection from quiet friendship into something deeper. Something they weren't sure how to handle yet. Marcus hadn't expected to see another gift that week. His mornings had become quieter, filled with routine, coffee, writing, checking emails, and small moments of anticipation for a smile from Ella when they passed each other in the street. He thought he had grown used to the comfort of her presence, to the quiet reassurance of shared words and late-night conversations. Then, on a crisp Saturday morning, he stepped outside and saw a small, neatly wrapped box resting on his porch once again. It wasn't large, just enough to intrigue him, with a single note tucked under the ribbon. He picked it up carefully, recognizing Ella's handwriting instantly. The note read, "If you're free tonight, meet me by the lake at 7. Ella. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. The invitation was simple, almost casual, yet it carried a quiet weight. He held the note in his hand, staring at it, imagining the lake under the soft glow of the evening sky. He told himself it was just a friendly gesture, maybe a walk, maybe just talking. But a part of him, an excited, nervous part, no, it meant more. As the afternoon passed, Marcus couldn't focus on anything else. His thoughts kept returning to the lake, to Ella, to the way her smile always made him feel lighter after a long day. By evening, he had dressed in a light jacket, shoes polished, hair combed, and a small gift of his own tucked into his coat pocket, a notebook with a story he had finished just yesterday. He didn't know if he would give it to her, but the thought of sharing it seemed right. The lake was only a 15-minute walk from his house. But when Marcus arrived, he was already nervous. The water shimmered under the fading sunset, reflecting the pink and gold clouds like a mirror. He could see Ella waiting near the dock, holding a small lantern. The glow from the light made her face seem warmer, more inviting than it had ever looked from her porch or across the fence. She wore a light beige coat and a scarf loosely wrapped around her neck. "You came," said a hint of relief in her voice. She wasn't smiling in a teasing way, but with a quiet warmth that made Marcus feel seen. "I wouldn't miss it," he said, returning her smile. Though his heart thumped faster than he expected, they walked side by side along the water's edge, each step soft against the wooden planks of the dock. The evening air smelled of pine and water, cool but not biting, and the gentle lapping of the lake created a rhythm that seemed to match the nervous beat of their hearts. Ella broke the silence first. her voice soft but steady. "I wanted to show you this place. It's quiet, peaceful. Sometimes when life gets too loud, it helps to come somewhere like this." Marcus nodded, feeling the truth of her words. "It's beautiful," he said. "Thank you for inviting me." She glanced at him quickly, almost shyly, then back at the water. "I also wanted to give you something," she said, holding out a sealed envelope. "It's a little personal." Marcus took it carefully, curious. The envelope was thick and slightly heavy. He opened it slowly, sliding the contents out. Inside were neatly printed pages, his own words. The stories he had typed on sleepless nights, drafts he had never shared with anyone. His eyes widened. You read these?" Ella shook her head quickly. "I didn't read all of them. Just enough to see who you are. You have a talent, Marcus. You shouldn't hide it." Her voice wavered slightly. "I wanted you to know that someone believes in your work. Not because it's perfect, but because it's you." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. He hadn't realized how much he needed this validation. It's quiet acknowledgement from someone who saw him for more than just a neighbor or a polite face. The notebook on his porch had been thoughtful, but this felt like an opening, a bridge into someone truly seeing him. I don't know what to say," he admitted, voice low. "You don't have to say anything," she whispered. "I just wanted you to see what I see. I think it's important. Sometimes people need someone to notice them before they can notice themselves." Marcus smiled, a little shakily, a little in awe. You believed in me before I did," he said softly. Ella looked down at the dock, shifting her weight, then glanced back at him. "I didn't do it to make you feel obligated. I did it because I wanted to, because I like seeing people grow, and I like seeing you." Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest, a rush of emotions he couldn't fully name. It was affection, respect, admiration, maybe even something deeper. He realized he had been waiting for someone to notice not just his words, but his heart, and here she was. The air grew cooler, and Marcus instinctively pulled his jacket tighter. Ella seemed to notice, and she wrapped her scarf a little tighter around her neck. For a long moment, they stood silently, the night enveloping them like a soft blanket. Then Ella stepped back slightly, her tone shifting to something more serious. "Marcus, there's something I need to tell you. Before anything happens between us, you need to know." Marcus's heart tightened. He nodded, silent but attentive, ready to hear whatever she needed to share. "I moved here because I needed to start over," she said, staring at the water. "I was engaged, but I walked away. Not because I didn't care, but because I changed. I wasn't the person he met anymore, and I couldn't pretend to be that person. I couldn't ask anyone else to love someone I wasn't." Marcus listened quietly, understanding the gravity in her words. "It's brave," he said softly. "Walking away is never easy." She nodded, eyes glistening in the lantern light. "I'm still healing, Marcus. I don't want to give someone pieces of me unless I know I can offer the whole heart someday." Marcus stepped closer, though not touching her. His presence alone seemed to matter. "You don't owe me perfection," he said. "You just owe yourself honesty. And I'm here whether this becomes something or stays something meaningful." Ella's lips curved into a fragile but genuine smile, a mixture of relief and hope. "I don't want this to end here," she whispered. "I just need time." Marcus nodded. "And I'll be right here, writing, waiting, not for the whole world, but for the right moment." They stood together on the dock, gazing at the lake, the night air filled with unspoken promises. Their story wasn't defined by grand gestures or immediate confessions, but by the quiet understanding and gentle trust growing between them. It was the kind of moment that could have been ordinary, but because of what they shared, it became extraordinary. The night seemed to stretch on, holding them in a fragile, beautiful bubble where everything felt possible. Marcus felt something shift inside him, something he hadn't felt in years: hope, connection, and a quiet certainty that life could surprise him in the best ways. And though the invitation began as a simple note on a box, it became a turning point, A night that marked the beginning of something neither of them fully understood, but both were willing to explore carefully. With hearts open and minds aware, the lake reflected the stars above, as if acknowledging a story just beginning, one filled with curiosity, affection, and the patient promise of more to come. The lake had fallen silent after their long walk along the dock. Moonlight reflected off the water, casting soft silver patterns across their faces. Marcus and Ella stood close enough to feel the quiet energy between them, but not so close that the air felt crowded. The lantern flickered gently, throwing shadows across the wooden planks. For a moment, neither spoke. The night carried their words before they could be said, the gentle lapping of water matching the rhythm of their hearts. Ella took a slow breath, her hands gripping the lantern tightly, as if it anchored her to the moment. She looked at Marcus, her eyes searching for a sign that he could handle the truth she was about to share. "Marcus, there's something I need you to know," she said softly, voice trembling slightly, but steady. "I moved here for a reason. Not just for peace, not just to start over, but because I needed to heal first." Marcus nodded, leaning slightly forward, attentive, ready to listen. He sensed her vulnerability, the careful honesty in her tone. He wanted to reassure her, but he knew that words alone wouldn't suffice. Sometimes silence carried more comfort than anything else. "I was engaged," Ella continued, eyes falling to the rippling water below. "But I left him. Not because I didn't love him, not because I didn't care, but because I realized I was changing. I was no longer the person he fell in love with. I couldn't ask him to stay with someone who wasn't the same, and I couldn't stay pretending to be that person myself." Marcus absorbed her words quietly. The weight of her confession was heavy, but it didn't scare him away. Instead, it created a quiet intimacy, a bridge between two people who had already started trusting each other in small, meaningful ways. "I'm still healing, Marcus," she whispered, eyes glistening with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. "I don't want to give anyone pieces of me unless I can give them my whole heart. And I need time before I can even consider that with anyone else." Marcus stepped a small pace closer, careful not to invade her space. His presence was steady, warm, and calm. "You don't owe me perfection," he said softly. "You owe yourself honesty. That's enough. And I'll be here whether this turns into something more or stays something meaningful just as it is." Ella looked up at him then, a fragile smile forming on her lips. It was shy, unsure, but real. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke again. "I don't want this to end. I just need time. I hope you can understand that." "I do," Marcus said quietly, "and I will wait. Not forever, not impatiently, but with patience. For the right moment, when it's ready, when we're both ready." For a long moment, they stood silently. The night seemed to stretch around them, holding the space between them sacred. Marcus noticed the small details, the soft curve of her smile, the gentle tilt of her head, the way the lantern's light caught her eyes. He realized that sometimes connection didn't need words to be understood. Sometimes it was the quiet shared presence, the mutual recognition of each other's hearts. Ella took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of unspoken tension. "You've been patient with me, Marcus, more than anyone else. And you've seen me in ways I didn't even realize I needed to be seen." Marcus smiled softly. "I think that's what neighbors are for," he said lightly, but his eyes betrayed a deeper truth. To notice, to care, to help without demanding anything in return. Her eyes glistened, and she shook her head slightly. "You've gone beyond that. You've become something more. Someone I trust, someone I look forward to seeing every day, even when I don't expect it." Marcus felt a warmth spread through him, the kind that made the chest ache with a mix of joy and longing. He wanted to reach out to hold her hand, but he restrained himself. He respected her need for space, her careful honesty, and her pace. Love, he realized, was not about rushing it, was about patience, about understanding, about being present when it mattered most. Ella's voice softened. "I don't want to make promises I can't keep. I don't want to risk hurting you if I'm not ready. But I feel something, Marcus. Something real. Something worth waiting for. Marcus nodded. Then that's enough for me. I don't need promises. I just need honesty, and you've given me that. I'll be here with no expectations, just presence. A soft wind stirred, moving through the trees around the lake. It carried with it the scent of pine and damp earth, and the quiet rustling seemed to echo their shared emotions. The night was alive, yet gentle. As if nature itself was acknowledging the beginning of something fragile, yet promising. Ella smiled again, a little brighter this time, her shoulders relaxing. "Thank you," she whispered, "for understanding, for being patient, for seeing me." Marcus stepped a little closer, still careful not to crowd her, and said, "I see you, Ella, all of you. And I want to be here, not for a moment, not for a chapter, but for the story you're writing, even if it's unfinished right now." She looked at him, eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and hope. The corners of her lips curved into a genuine smile, the kind that reached her eyes and softened the edges of all her past fears. "I didn't know I could feel this way again," she admitted. "I didn't know I could trust someone without fear." Marcus felt a quiet relief, as if a weight had lifted from both their hearts. "Then let's take it slow," he said. "No rush, no expectations. Just us. Here, now." For the first time in years, Ella felt a lightness in her chest, a warmth that wasn't fleeting or forced. It was real. It was steady. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to hope. They stayed there, by the lake, long after the lantern had dimmed and the moon had climbed higher into the night sky. The air was cool, but neither of them felt cold. Words had been shared, truths had been revealed. And a quiet bond had formed, a bond that didn't need labels, declarations, or dramatic gestures. It was enough that they understood each other, that they were present for each other, that they could breathe in the same night and feel something genuine. Finally, as the first hint of dawn approached, Marcus spoke. "Shall we head back?" Ella nodded yes. "But I'll walk slowly," she said, smiling softly. "I want to savor this night the way it feels." And so they walked, side by side, along the quiet streets of their neighborhood. The world around them had not changed, but something between them had. Something unspoken yet deeply felt had shifted. Their connection was no longer just about curiosity or casual friendship, was about understanding, trust, and the delicate beginnings of love. It wasn't a story of instant passion or immediate resolution. It was a story of patience, honesty, and the gentle promise of something beautiful. Their hearts were open, cautious but willing, and the night had given them a gift more lasting than any notebook, any note, any gesture, the gift of possibility. And as they parted at their doorsteps, each returning home with quiet anticipation and soft smiles, they knew the story wasn't ending. It was only beginning. A beginning filled with hope, with honesty, and with the gentle promise that sometimes the heart knows its own timing, and waiting can be the most meaningful part of all.